Thank you, everyone, for coming. Welcome to the closing exhibit of the Honor and Comfort Quilts of Valor. Robert Wharton will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. That will be followed by the bugle call to the color, and then Judge Shea will sing the national anthem.
Please face the flag. Attention. Present arms. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2.
In his Gettysburg Address, President Abraham Lincoln challenged the living to offer increased devotion to that cause for which so many had given the last full measure of devotion. So today, as we rise and sing our national anthem, I encourage you, in the words of President Lincoln, to honor all our veterans by rededicating your lives to an increased devotion to the cause of freedom, equality, opportunity, and justice for all. Will you please join me? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Good afternoon. My name is Frank Bennett. I'm the CEO of the museum, and it is my honor and distinct privilege to welcome the men and women who have protected our freedom to the National Quilt Museum. I need to take just a few moments and thank the folks who have made this event possible. Let me get through all of them. We'll give them all an applause. Dr. and Mrs. John E. McCracken, Dr. and Mayor Montgomery, Mrs. and Mr. Roger Truitt, Royal Oaks Chevrolet, and Four Rivers Harley Davidson. Please give them applause. There are also some people that I would definitely like to honor who are here. First of all, we were all treated to a wonderful rendition of the national anthem by the Honorable Judge Shea Nickel. Please give him applause. I have not seen him yet, but I believe State Senator Danny Carroll is here. If you're here, can you raise your hand? I haven't seen him yet, but he's on his way. State Representative Gerald Watkins is here. Please give him applause. And also the museum founders, Bill and Meredith Schrader, are here. Please recognize yourself. Raise your hand. Please welcome Quilts of Valor Executive Director Ann Rabine.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank you all for coming today. The toppers, the long armors, the recipients, the guests, and the staff. Your time and effort in traveling from all the corners of this nation are greatly appreciated. I would also certainly like to thank the Special Events Committee of Betsy, Susan, and Nancy. They, along with the excellent staff of the National Quilt Museum, have done an outstanding job, and it is so appreciated. Not all of you know the story of the Quilts of Valor Foundation, so I'd like to share it with you. Our mission is to honor our service members and veterans who have been touched by war with Quilts of Valor. It is a national organization founded in 2003 by Blue Star mom Catherine Roberts, literally with a dream. Catherine's son Nat was deployed in Iraq, and she said she was 10 seconds away from panic 24 hours a day. She had a dream as vivid as real life. In her words, she said, "I saw a young man sitting on the side of his bed in the middle of the night, hunched over. The permeating feeling was one of utter despair. I could see his war demons clustered around, dragging him down into an emotional gutter. Then, as if viewing a movie, I saw him in the next scene, wrapped in a quilt. His whole demeanor changed from one of despair to one of hope and well-being. The quilt had made this dramatic change. The message of my dream was, quilts equal healing." Since then, over 120,000 Quilts of Valor have been awarded here in the United States and in Germany, Iraq, and Afghanistan. These quilts bring you a three-part message from our hearts. First, we honor you for your service, raising your right hand and taking that oath and leaving all that you held dear. Next, these quilts are meant to say, thank you for that service, sacrifice, and valor in serving our nation. And finally, these quilts are meant to offer comfort, warmth, peace, and healing to the individual who receives it. And for you to know that you are forever in all of our thoughts and our hearts. Though we may never know the depth of your service to protect and defend the United States of America, as a gesture of gratitude from a grateful nation, we are honored to be awarding you a Quilt of Valor today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Susan Gordon. We have a tradition in Quilts of Valor of wrapping our warriors in their quilt. We hope that's okay with all of you, and we kind of send it off with a hug. If you'd rather a handshake, we'll honor that wish. Never met anyone who didn't want a hug yet. Nancy Can is the state coordinator for Kentucky. She's been very busy arranging this ceremony, and I'd like to ask her to read the certificate that each of our recipients will have this afternoon.
Thank you. Our certificate will read with the recipient's name and branch of service on the top. And it says, on behalf of the Quilts of Valor Foundation, in recognition of your service and sacrifice for this nation, it is a privilege to serve honor and comfort upon you through the award of this Quilt of Valor. Though we may never know the depth of your sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, as a gesture of gratitude from a grateful nation, we award you this Quilt of Valor.
Before I begin to introduce our honorees today, I would like to ask that this being Veterans Day, would all of you who have served in our military please stand and let us thank you for your service.
As you can see, we have quilters that are veterans as well as what? Other veterans. Why do I make it sound like you can't be a veteran and be a quilter too? You can, can't you? Our first honoree is Charles Hyduke. Charles, would you stand? The name of Charles's quilt is For Their Courage. It was pieced by Clarice Grace and quilted by Donna Rogers. And here to present it to Charles today are Clarice and her husband Richard Grace. Turn this way, Charles. Yeah. Let them see. Let them see you. Our next awardee is Jean Burke, United States Army, United States Navy, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. The name of this quilt is Patriotic Pineapples, and it was pieced and quilted by Carrie Barnes. It's being presented today by Carrie and Bert Barnes. I'm sorry, it looks like Mr. Burke was not here today. And Charles, before I forget, I want to say that Charles Hyduke was in the United States Navy, served in Guam and Korea. Thank you for your service, sir. Our next awardee is Felicia Deal. Felicia is United States Air Force, Okinawa. The name of Felicia's quilt is Ray's All-American Stars and Stripes. It was pieced by Lisa Sutherland. It was quilted by Jody Wrigley, and it's presented today by Robert and Donna Warden. Our next quilt is being awarded to C.H. Dunnigan, United States Army, Korea. The name of the quilt is Home for the Holidays. It was pieced by Peg Gutman, quilted by Mary Smart, and is presented today by Ann Rabine and Ginger Fondren. Our next award goes to Charles Golson, United States Army and United States Air Force, World War II. The name of this quilt is Stars for Freedom. It was pieced and quilted by Patricia Hagan, and it's presented by Sylvia and George Samar. I don't know if you heard Mr. Golson, but he said pretty thing. We're glad you appreciate it. Our next award goes to Lawrence Durbin, United States Army, World War II. The name of this quilt is Scrappy Split Stars. It was pieced and quilted by Wendy Frieden, and it's presented by Sandy Burke and Susan Paul. Our next quilt is presented to Goldman Humbles, who served in the United States Army. Gladman, thank you. Goldman Humbles. I hand wrote it, my handwriting. My apology, Goldman. United States Air Force. I'm sure everyone in the Air Force appreciates your correcting me on that. It was pieced and quilted by Barb Vihek. Did I get close? Videk? She needs more vowels in her name. And it is awarded today by Barb and Bill Schrader. Looks good on you, Goldman. Our next award goes to Benny Durbin, United States Army, Korea. The name of this quilt is Trip Around the World. It was pieced by Mr. Peglow's middle school students in New York. It's a beautiful quilt and it's wonderful for those of us who are quilters to know there's another generation coming along who will carry on our mission. It was quilted by Lori Brown of Tennessee, and it's presented today by Nancy and Jack Can. Our next award is a special personal opportunity. We were not sure that this person could be here today, but I am very pleased and honored to award Alex Eugene Frost. Come up, Mr. Frost. United States Army, if I got that right. Served in Vietnam. His quilt was pieced by the Georgia girls. It was quilted by Pat Walker. And Betsy and I have the honor of awarding this to him today. There, honey. How about that? The first quilt to be awarded in this section is awarded to Mark Davis, United States Air Force. The name of the quilt is Flight Home, which seems appropriate for Air Force. It was pieced by Sybil Lancour and quilted by Joan Beatty, and it's being presented today by Sybil Lancour and Joan Beatty. Our next quilt is awarded to Gary Smethers, United States Air Force, Vietnam. It was pieced and quilted by Roberta Sarin, and it's presented by Roberta and Ralph Sarin. Our next quilt is awarded to Brian Menshouse, United States Army, Iraq, and Afghanistan. The name of this quilt is Freedom Isn't Free. Pieced and quilted by Liz View. Liz has hand quilted this, which in these days and times, your grandmother's hand quilted, but in these days and time, that's a rarity. It's presented by Liz and PJ View. Our next quilt is awarded to Doris Long, if she can quit being the photographer for long enough. Doris is a veteran of the United States Army, 1981-2013. The name of her quilt is Stars Across America. It was pieced and quilted by Lauren Byrne and is presented by Lauren and her son, Army Specialist Kyle Byrne. Kyle is still on active duty, and we're glad you could be here with us today, Kyle. Our next award goes to Chad Sims, United States Army, Afghanistan. The name of this quilt is Just One Star. It was pieced and quilted by the proud members of the Moda Fabric Family, a sponsor of the National Quilt Museum, and it's presented today by Liz View and Mary Ann Fons. He's not here. Okay. We are sorry that Chad was unable to join us. Our next quilt is awarded to Jeremy Wallace, United States Army, Iraq, and Germany. The name of the quilt is United We Stand. It was pieced and quilted by Robin Hauser. It is presented by Carol Plassman and Kathleen Young. Our next quilt is awarded to Jack Faris, who could not be here today. He served in the United States Air Force. It was pieced and quilted by Lorraine Smith. It's presented by Terry Yates and Sharon Ledbetter. Well, maybe just Terry Yates. Thank you, Ginger. Our next quilt is awarded to Monica Mitchell, United States Army. It's pieced by Linda Harrison and was quilted by Debbie Chastain. It's presented today by Linda Harrison and Mark Mitchell. Our next award goes to David Feltz, United States Army, Iraq. The name of this quilt is Army Illusion. It was pieced by Jane Phillips, quilted by Pat Pike, and is presented by Jane Phillips and Janet Meeks. Our next quilt is awarded to Pamela Reasoner, United States Navy, Desert Storm. The name of this quilt is Sentry. It is pieced and quilted by Judy Yates and is presented by Judy Yates and Rich Doc Reasoner. Our next award, a quilt is awarded to Matthew Howard, United States Army, Iraq. The name of this quilt is Midnight Eagle. It was pieced by Mary Lambert and friends. It is quilted by Joe Bell. Today it is being presented by Mary Lambert and Joe Bell. Our next quilt is awarded to James T Ellis, United States Air Force. The name of this quilt is Ocean Deep. It was pieced by Marcia Horner and friends, quilted by Warren Larson, and is presented by Lois Lovo and Susan Paul. Our next quilt is awarded to John Blankenship, United States Army, Iraq, Afghanistan. The name of this quilt is Stars of Freedom Parade. It is pieced by Nancy Beecher, quilted by Carol Thurston, and is presented by Nancy Beecher and Carol Thurston. Our next quilt is awarded to Douglas Dunnigan, United States Army. The name of this quilt is Salute to Our Military. Pieced by Frances Palumbo, quilted by Sharon Campbell, and presented by Frances Palumbo and Bernie Wickham. Our next quilt is awarded to Erin Winder, United States Army, Afghanistan. The name of this quilt is Three Tours. It was pieced and quilted by Tony Jacobson, who originally created this pattern for his nephew who had served 3 tours. It's presented by Tony Jacobson and Nancy Cann. Our next quilt is awarded to Derek Cropper, United States Army, Iraq, Kuwait, and is currently actively still serving. The name of this quilt is Go Big. Pieced by Denise Halvison and friends, quilted by retired Major Gene Carson, is being presented today by Denise Halvison and Debbie Phillips. Our next quilt is awarded to Don Burns Wilcox, United States Army, Iraq, Afghanistan. It was pieced and quilted by Ruth Ann Seelaff, presented by Ruth Ann and Bruce Wilcox. I got to tell you a story about this. Bruce wasn't scheduled to award this quilt, but he wouldn't get out of the chair. Thank you, Bruce. Our next quilt is awarded to Kenneth Charles Eaton, United States Army. The name of the quilt is Pride and Honor. It was pieced and quilted by Tiffany Hayes and is presented by Tiffany Hayes and Terry Clark. Terry Clark nominated Charles because that's her brother. Our next quilt is awarded to Erik Bohannon, United States Army, Iraq, Afghanistan. The name of this quilt is Round and Round, pieced by Jenny Cahy, quilted by Carrie Dynan, and presented by Carrie Barnes and Phyllis Kaldenberg. As you can see, Erik brought his daughter to share that with him today. Thank you, Erik. Our next quilt is awarded to Danny Powley, United States Army, Vietnam. The name of this quilt is Climb the Mountains to the Stars and Stripes. It was pieced by Lisa Sutherland and quilted by Jean Harbin. It's presented today by Harvey and Lynn Mayhill. Our next quilt is awarded to Lacey Larkin, United States Marine Corps. It was pieced by Susan Calabrese and quilted by John King. It's presented today by Susan Calabrese and John King. I've waited to the end to tell you the name of this quilt. It's Oorah. Lacey is our only Marine being awarded today, so that was a really lucky match. Our next quilt is awarded to Earl Jacobson, United States Army, World War II. This quilt is named American Freedom. It was pieced by Al Lind, quilted by Joyce Lundigan, and presented by June and Mike Moore. Earl, before you sit down, that quilt was made by Al Lind, whom June taught how to sew when he was, how old was Al when he learned to sew?
He was
89. Between then and when he died at 95, he pieced over 500 tops that were quilts that will all become Quilts of Valor. Our next quilt is awarded to Kevin Macdonald, United States Army, Yugoslavia. It was pieced by Phyllis Jacobs, quilted by Mary Pusey, and is awarded today by Sharon Ledbetter and Robert Warden. Our next quilt is awarded to Christopher Philippi, thank you. United States Army, Iraq, Afghanistan, and is currently on active duty and stationed at Fort Campbell. The name of this quilt is Hero's Homecoming. It was pieced and quilted by Mary Eriks and presented by Sylvia Samar and Linda Tyler. Our next quilt is awarded to Thomas Coulter, United States Army, Iraq, Afghanistan. The name of this quilt is Protecting Our Borders, pieced by Carol Johnson, quilted by Evelina Ems, and is presented today by Carol Johnson and Evelina Ems. Our next quilt is awarded to David Brown, United States Navy, Vietnam. The name of this quilt is Stars of Honor. It was pieced by Susan Lorenz and friends and quilted by Terry Clark. Presenting today are Susan Lorenz and Terry Clark.
To close our ceremony today, we will be playing Retreat, which those of you in the military know, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, so you'll have to come and correct me. But I've been on military bases when it's either 4:30, 5:30, whatever the custom is at that particular base, and everyone stops. They turn to where they know the flag is, if it's not in their vision, and they do nothing. If they're in a car, they stop the car, they get out. Retreat is what is played. That's the end of the military day, and this is the end of our ceremony.